Welcome back. I'm Jeremy with Desert Tsunami, and in today's tutorial we're going to touch on the eventing system slightly. In the last tutorial we walked through making some maps, and at the end I'd asked you to make just a few extra maps to create a game world. If you haven't done that, no big deal. Just come over here to your map tree, right click in your map tree, and just load up a couple of sample maps. One or two should be just fine. Now that that's done, let's come up here and switch over to event mode. The event mode button is going to be a little character standing on top of a map. You'll know you're in event mode when all these grids start popping up. These grids indicate where you can place events. That includes NPCs as well. Now these events can really be anything that you need them to be. The very first event we're going to look at is a transfer event. So what I want is for my player to come from outside here in the hamlet and into this house, which is going to be house 1. So what we want to do is choose a good location for the player to interact with this. We probably don't want it out here in the path, so let's click on the door itself. Right click on that location and then come down to quick event creation. Over here we've got a few different options. We have transfer, we have door. Door is basically the exact same thing as transfer, just gives you a graphic. We have treasure. This is how you can set up getting your characters or getting your players extra gold, items, money, weapons, whatever it is you need them to have. We also have in. For the switches, we'll worry about the switches a little bit later. Same with the in. So for now, let's just click on transfer, and this window is going to pop up. When this window pops up, there's a few things that we need to pay attention to here. 1, our location, and 2, the direction. First, let's click on the location. The location is going to open up a new window, which is going to give us the entirety of our map tree. What we need to do here is click on the map that we want to transfer to, and then we need to select where we want them to transfer to. Now, I recommend not having them transfer right in at the edge of the map. That will cause problems later on. You also don't want to have them one step away from the map. This is mainly because of player behavior. Now, all of us as players have walked into a new map, it takes a little bit of time to load, and we start going ham on our keyboard or on our controller. If we place it too away from the end, or too away from the map edge, that's going to give our player enough time to respond so they don't accidentally go back and have to reload everything. So let's place it too away from the edge. Once we have it placed, we'll hit OK. And next we have our direction. Now by default, it's typically on retain. What I like to do here is force the direction that my player is facing. So in this case, I want the player to face up. What retain does is that if the player is already facing up when they enter that new area, they'll stay facing up. If they're facing left, then they'll be facing left. I like to force it, and you'll see why here in a bit. So I'm going to go and say OK, up, and then I'm going to say OK. Okay, that event's done. Let's go on and make sure this event works. So let's right click somewhere, and we're actually going to come down here to start or set starting position. Now this is something you're going to do often while you're making your game. You'll need to test small things in your map, if events are working correctly, how things feel, so get used to doing this. So set start position, player. And that's going to put the player model right in that map wherever you clicked. From here, let's hit playtest. Now every time you playtest, you do need to save. Otherwise, any progress that you have made isn't going to show up in the playtest. So if you haven't saved after you've made all your changes, hit playtest and then hit save. Okay. Whenever you're playtesting something new, you always want to go to new game. That's going to start the player or start your playtest where you placed your player start. Okay, so we're in our map. Let's come up here. Perfect. We are inside. The next thing we need to do is create an event that takes us out of the house and back into the hamlet. Now, I do have an event here, but typically these actually don't exist. When you create an event that's going to go from one place, it's a one-way ticket. You have to create the event that leaves. So we're going to do the exact same thing in here. Let's select the edge of the map, right click, quick event creation, transfer. We're going to click on location, click on the seaside hamlet. Now this one's going to be a bit trickier. If we place them here, that's a little too close. If we place them down here, that just feels a little weird. So in this case, let's place them right here. We're going to say OK, and this is where the direction force is going to come into play. Let's have them facing left. So when we leave, they're going to be facing the left side of the screen. We'll hit OK. Let's go on and save it this time, play test it, and make sure that our transfer works both ways. Okay, we can come in, we can move around, we'll touch the edge of the map, and we're back out facing the correct location. Perfect. Alright, now that we have a quick transfer event set up, let's go on and look at the event editor itself. So on your map, anywhere where you see one of these empty grid spots, it can even be over something, doesn't make a difference, double click on it, and we're going to have our event editor pop up. Let's go over what's going on in this particular window. At the top, the very first thing we have is name. So please name your event. This one I'm going to go on and call tester for now. Over here at notes, this is where you can place anything that you need to tell yourself or a reminder once you open up this event. I'm going to say rename this events, because we'll rename it a little bit later. To the right of there, we have new event page. So if we press this, it's going to give us a new event page. So now we have event page 1 and event page 2. If we copy an event page, it's going to copy the event page that we're currently on, which is going to light up paste, which is then going to paste a new event page. To the right of there, we have delete event page. If we click it, it's just going to delete that event page. And then we have clear event page. That's basically going to set the entire page back to 0. Think of it like factory settings. Okay, below here, we have our conditions. We've got switches, variables, self switches, items, and actors. We're going to go over switches and self switches today, but the way most of these work are, think of this as a light switch. The variables are kind of like switches, they're just switches on steroids essentially. With self switches, these only affect things that are going on within this event. They cannot affect any other events. That's important to remember. With items, this is going to tell the event that if the player has this item, then you can trigger the event. Same with actor. If this actor is in the party, then trigger the event. Below here, we have our image. If we double click on here, it's going to open up our selector, and then we'll just choose, in this case we're just going to choose an NPC. We're going to say OK, and there they are. To the right of here, we have the autonomous movement. With type, we have 4 different types. Fixed is going to cause the image to stand in one spot. They're not going to move. They will rotate depending on where the player is, if the player interacts with them. Otherwise, they do not move around the map. Random will cause the event to move around the map. The entire map is where it's going to move, so it could literally move anywhere. Approach is going to cause the event to walk towards the player. And then we have custom. Custom gets a little bit trickier. The whole movement route system we're going to be working with a little bit later. For now, let's leave this on fixed. Below there, we have speed and we have frequency. Now the best way to think about these, speed. Speed determines how quickly or how fast that event is going to move from grid space to grid space. So at slower, it's going to be relatively slow, but we can make it go even slower. At fast, or faster, means it's going to move from grid space to grid space at a pretty quick clip. What the frequency does is determines how often they're moving from grid space to grid space. So they may be moving from grid space 1 to grid space 2 relatively slowly, but they're not going to pause too much if you set this to, say, highest when they move from grid space 3 to grid space 4, or grid space 2 to grid space 3, sorry. If you set it at lowest, every time they enter a new grid space, they're going to pause for a bit, and then they'll move to the next grid space. Let's just leave this at normal for now. Bottom left of there, we have our options. What walking means is that if this event moves, it's going to use the walking animation of the sprite that you've selected. Stepping. What stepping does is it causes the event to step in place. So think of some of those older RPGs or even some of the newer ones where you have your NPCs standing in one spot and they're just walking in place. That's what stepping does. It can be used for a few other things than that, but that's essentially what it's used for most of the time. Direction fix. What direction fix does is if I choose, so up here, I've got this image set to facing downwards, it's always going to face down. If it moves to the left, it's not going to turn left, it's going to move to the left but still face down. So it's always looking down. And then we have through. This one you can use here mostly depending on what you're going to use it for, but essentially what this does is any collision object that would essentially stop that event from moving past it, it will go through that object. Alright, from the right of here we have our priority. Priorities are basically layers. We've got 3 different ones. Below character or below the player, so the player is going to walk on top of it. We have same as player, so the character is going to run into it. Or we have above character or above player. That means it's going to be moving above the player or it exists above the player. For this one, we're going to leave it as same as character. Alright, that's the left side done. Now for the right side. This is where all of your scripting or your events or essentially your programming is going to pop up. To open this up, let's double click, since we have nothing in here, let's double click somewhere in content and this window is going to pop up. Now there's a lot of stuff in this window, like there's a ton of it, and yeah, we are going to go through it all, but not in this video. Right now the only thing I want to focus on is show text, show choice, control switch, control self switch, conditional branch, we're going to hit on comments as well, this one's relatively easy, and transfer player. Okay, so let's go on and do show text. When the show text window pops up, there's a few things that we need to pay attention to in here. On the left, we have our face. So if you talk to this graphic or you talk to this event, what graphic do you want to pop up when the text is popping up alongside what they're saying? So if we double click on this, this will take us to our faces. We chose her. So we'll say OK. And then to the right, we have where we place our text. You'll just type what you want in here. Now this is important to pay attention to. It may be a little bit harder to see on my screen than it is on yours depending on what your UI looks like, but there's this black line in the text box. This black line is a text safety zone. So if you have any kind of text that goes beyond that black line, there's pretty much a guarantee you're going to lose it. It's going to be cut off. This line does move depending on if you have a face graphic. So if we get rid of the face graphic, we can see that the line is much further back than it was with the face graphic. Okay. Moving on from here, we have the name. This is going to put the name of whoever's speaking with this text box over the text box. So we're going to call her Mary. To the right of here, we have our background. We have three different backgrounds. We have window, dim, and transparent. Now the window is going to be determined solely off what's going on in the database. That's something that we're going to get to at a later tutorial. Dim will give you, it's basically a window, but it's a blackened section of the screen. And transparent is not going to give you any type of window, and it's going to lay the text directly over the map. This one you definitely want to be careful with. If you're in a map that has a lot of bright things in it, there's a chance that the player may not see the text. There's ways to fix this, but right now, just be mindful of this one. We're going to leave it on window for now. Next we have window position. Now, it does say window position, but this is going to affect everything in here. So what we have is bottom, middle, and top. You can use these for a lot of different narrative things. For instance, when most of my characters are talking in my games, it's typically at the bottom. Sometimes I'm forced to put it at top, but usually it's at the bottom. For middle, I'll usually use this if it's a system message. So if I'm letting my player know you obtain 5,000 gold, then I'll put that in the middle. Usually I'll mix that with the dim. If it's a thought, or if it's a character that's off screen, I usually place it at the top. So the way it works is bottom is at the bottom of the screen, middle is in the middle of the screen, and top is at the top of the screen. Let's leave this at bottom. From the right of there, what the preview will do is show you, it's not going to give you the graphical look of the window, but it will show you what's popping up. So we're safe here. If anything is getting cut off, we'll figure it out here. So let's actually test that. So we have hello there, and we're going to put a bunch of 2s until we get to that line, and then I'm going to put a bunch of 8s. If we hit preview, we see the rest of our 8s have all been cut off. The 8 that's at the end there, that's actually beyond the line, is somewhat there, but not fully. So I typically, or my rule is to usually keep at least one space away from the line. Usually. Okay. Batch. What the batch entry does is if we go beyond the 4 lines that are afforded to us in the text box, it will then create an identical text box with the new text in it. So let's see that in action. So we have hello there, we're going to put 1, 2, 3. Typically we're not going to be able to go past here, but if we hit batch entry, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, now that we're done with that, let's go on and hit OK. Okay, this is what the batch entry just did. So this is what we are working with. Since we ran out of those 4 lines, it gave us 4, 5, 6, and 7 down here. Now we don't need 4, 5, 6, and 7, so let's go ahead and delete that. And you can delete it by just selecting the segment of the event you want and hitting delete. But now we need to edit this. We don't need to delete this. What we can do is we can right click on it and go to edit, or if we have it selected, we can hit space. We'll just remove what we don't need, press OK, and we're good to go. And then we're going to go on and hit apply. And okay. Okay, so we have our first NPC here. Let's check and make sure she works okay. Okay, we clicked on her, she says hello, fantastic. Now notice how she's turns towards us when we talk to her. If we talk to her from the top, she'll turn towards us. So let's look at one of those options in action here. Let's double click on our event, and I'm going to put on direction fix. We'll hit apply, say okay, save, retest it. Notice how she's not turning towards us anymore? That's because the direction fix is on. Okay. Let's turn that off. Now, let's look at some other stuff here. This one's going to get a little bit more complicated. So if you want to take a break, now is a good time to take a break. I'm going to go take a break. Alright, now that we've had a small break, let's go on and make a new NPC and start setting up a quest. So I'm going to place a new NPC right here. Well, we don't want to damage things. Let's get her. I'm just going to call her Quest Giver. Okay, and here we're going to be doing quite a few different things. We're going to be looking at the choices. We're going to look at control switches, self switches, and conditional branches. Okay, so if you need to pause this or you need to go back, please do so. So first thing we need to do is let's show some text. We're going to call her Lily. That works. And we're going to give Lily a face. Lily wants us to go retrieve something for her. So she'll ask, she wants some mushrooms. So she'll ask, you would be so kind to get some mushrooms for me from the forest. Okay. So she's asking us to get her mushrooms now. Next, we're going to give our player the choice to accept or to deny. So in that case, we're going to come over here to Show Choice. Now in our Show Choice window here, we've got a few things to look at. We have 6 choices that we can choose through. Not all of these are going to pop up. If there's nothing in these boxes, it won't pop up. It will always give us yes or no. Now we can use these for player dialogue. It doesn't have to say yes or no, we can put whatever we want in there. Over here to the right, we have our background, same as the text. We have our position, same as the text. And then we have default and cancel. The default is going to be the choice that your cursor is going to default onto. Cancel is essentially going to end the tree. But the tree is going to end no matter which one you choose. We'll look at that soon. So let's put something interesting in here. Okay, we'll have him say, sure, what are the mushrooms for? Or we'll have them say, I really don't have time for that. Alright, once we hit OK here, what this is going to do is create some branches. On top, it's going to give us all the choices. We typically won't see them all. But below, this is where it gets important. So when the player chooses sure, what are the mushrooms for, or yes in this case, a bunch of stuff can happen. If we say no, other things can happen. Once the choice has been made, we can come down here to end, and it doesn't matter what choice is made up here, everything after end is going to run. Okay? So let's have Mary say, or is this Mary? This is Lily. Where's Lily? There she is. Lily, thank you. I really love mushrooms. Period. And okay. Alright, let's make sure this is working. And as I mentioned before, it doesn't matter what you choose, what happens after the end of the multiple choice is going to happen. So let's come up here and talk to Mary. Lily. We want some mushrooms. She really loves mushrooms. Even if we say no. She's just very kind, I guess. We'll say yes. She's still very kind. Okay. Let's start setting up those switches. The first thing that we do need to do, though, is get a way for our player to make it to the forest. So let's set up some new transfers. This time we're going to do the transfers ourselves. So over here, I'm going to double click at the edge of the map, and I'm going to call this Hamlet to Forest. I'm going to double click on content, come over here to page 2 and click on transfer player. This is basically the exact same window that we saw earlier. For location, I'm going to click on location, and from here it's all going to be the same. I think the Hamlet's going to be on this side, so I'm going to place my player right here. Remember, one space between where the player lands and the edge of the map. I'll say OK. And I want them to be facing right. If you want the fade to be different, instead of it being from black, you can change it to white, or you can put none. I would definitely use either black or white. If you do none, it can be very jarring to the player. From here, we'll just say OK. And we're good. Of course, we now have a way to go to the forest, but we have no way to come back from the forest. So we'll do the same thing over here. Transfer player. Seaside Hamlet. That's where our transfer event is that's taking us to the forest. Place it one away. Have them look left. Keep it as black and say OK. Okay, there's one thing that I forgot to do in the other one. And that's the trigger. If it's a field transfer, so they're not going into a building, there's no door, there's nothing that they need to interact with, they're just going from one field map to another field map, down here at the trigger, change this to player touch. Once that's changed, we'll hit apply and OK. We have to do the same thing over here at the Hamlet one as well. So we'll double click on it, change it to player touch, say apply, and OK. Okay. I hope you're still with me here. Back up here with Lily, we're going to double click on Lily, and we need to set up how this quest is going to work. So if we say yes, we want Lily to say, Lily, choosing people one. We'll have Lily say, there are mushrooms in the forest. I just need one. Okay, I know that period is right up against that black line, but we should be safe with it. I'll say OK. And then we're going to turn on a switch. Over here, under game progression, we're going to click on control switches. We then need to designate what switch we want to turn on. Now I've already got some stuff set up here, but typically how this looks is like this. What I recommend doing is when you have a bunch of switches, you definitely want to start organizing them. So I'm going to call these tester switches. And the switch that I'm actually going to turn on is going to be switch 2. Something else to pay attention to. I've already added some extra switches in here, but typically you only have 20 switches that you can work with. If you need more, come down here to change maximum and put the maximum number of switches you need. So usually, this is what we have. 1 through 20, and that's it. If we come back over here to change maximum, I like to do this as multiples of 20. So instead of doing like 30 or 35, I do 40. Instead of doing 50, we'll do 60. So let's type in 60 and say OK. What this does is it gives us full pages, so we don't have to keep changing our maximum when we need one extra switch. Okay, now let's click on switch 2 and we'll name this mushrooms. We'll hit apply. We'll say OK. And then down here we have the operation. Now switches by default are always off. If we just turn an event into a switch, it's going to be off unless something is acted upon it, meaning something has turned it on. Now what turns it on can be in any map in your game. It really doesn't make a difference as long as the switch gets turned on. So we're going to say operation on, and we'll say OK. Let's tell our player where they need to go, just in case they were bombing through things. Say OK, and we're good. Now we have to set up that other switch. Let's hit apply. We'll say OK, and we'll click over here on our forest. Over here in the forest, we've already got some mushrooms. That's fantastic. What we want to do here is double click on these mushrooms, and we'll call them mushrooms. And under the conditions, we'll hit switch. Then we'll choose the switch that we want this to be associated with. Next, we need to tell our player that this is where you need to be. We've already told our player that go get some mushrooms, but usually an extra indicator is going to be helpful. So we're going to double click on the image. I'm actually going to come down here to fire and select these green twinkles. We'll say OK. We're going to hit stepping, and then over here we need to add a few things. We're going to make this one relatively easy. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is make a new control switch. Make this switch number 3. Got mushrooms, hit apply. We want this switch to be on. Let's let our player know that they did indeed get mushrooms. Say OK. So what this has done now is this has turned on, it's a very loud truck, this has turned on a different switch and it's told us what we needed to do. Now we need to kill this particular event page. The way we're going to do that is we're going to click on Control Self Switch. Self Switch A is going to be just fine. Now, the way self switches work is they only affect that event. They do not affect any other event. So any page in that event is going to be affected by the self switch. We do have 4 self switches by default: A, B, C, and D. There are ways to get more, but we'll worry about that further down the line. So control switch A, or self switch A, is going to be perfect. We want to turn it on, and then we want to make a new event page, and under condition we want to hit self switch, make sure that's at A, and then hit apply. So let's read what's happening here. We interact with our mushrooms by clicking on them with the action button. It's going to turn on the switch first, got mushrooms, tell us that we got a mushroom, and then turn on self switch A, which moves us over here. Nothing's going on over here. No twinkles, no nothing. So if the player interacts with this, nothing happens. Okay, fantastic. Let's go on and hit apply. And then we're going to come back to the Seaside Hamlet. Now there's a few extra things with Lily, that we need to do. For one, nothing's going on over here. and we can leave that alone. That's fine. But down here, we need to switch Mary over. Is this Mary? This is Lily. We need to switch Lily over to a different page as well. So, let's do this. Copy event page, paste event page. The only reason we're doing that is so we don't have to go look for Lily again. And then, we're going to remove everything in there, and we're also going to turn her into a self-switch A as well. But now we need to call this particular page. So let's come back over here to page 1. Control self-switch, A, on. Perfect. Let's apply that just to lock it in there. Back over here in 2, we're going to do a few extra things. 1, we're going to have Lily ask us if we found the mushrooms. Next, we're going to use a conditional branch. Now, if you're familiar with programming, this is basically an if statement. If one thing is true, then run this branch. If it's not true, run this branch. So in this case, we always get an if. We're going to come down here and click on create else branch. What we're going to have this check is if got mushrooms is turned on, something's going to happen. As far as these conditional branches go, there is a ton of things that we can do in here. We can run them off of variables, self-switches, actors, characters, enemies. These things can do quite a bit. But at its most basic form, we're going to keep it just like this. We're going to say OK. And here's our branch. So if got mushroom switch is on, Lily is going to say, oh, thank you. Now I can make my stew. Okay, she wants to make stew. If we don't have that switch on, i.e. we did not get the mushrooms, I'm actually going to copy this and just paste it down here and edit it. Oh, that's too bad. No. Can you please get the mushrooms? Mushroom. There we go. We'll say okay. We forgot to give Lily a face here, so let's give her a face. And we clearly forgot to do it in this one as well. This is just to keep consistency. Alright. If we get through here, the next thing we want to do is turn off that switch. Just turn off mushrooms. Just to have it off. We don't want too many things on for no reason. And this is just to keep our processes as minimal as we possibly can. So we're going to turn that off. We're then going to turn off got mushrooms. And then we're going to switch Lily over to self-switch B. So I'm going to copy this page again, paste it. Forgot to turn on self-switch B, didn't we? Self-switch B. Come back over here to page 3. Change this to B. We're going to remove everything in here. And Lily is just going to say, this stew will be amazing. Okay. And that's all she's going to say until we decide to change something in here. We're going to hit apply. We'll say okay. Let's test this out. Okay, there's Lily. Let's agree to get her mushrooms. Okay, this is running pretty much how we wanted it to. Oops. Oh no. This is going to make this larger. There we go. Okay, that's easier. Ah, look, sparkles. We'll click on the mushrooms. We got mushrooms. The sparkles are now turned off. We'll come back over here to the town. We'll give them to Mary. Did you find the mushrooms? Oh, thank you. Perfect. Now she'll just tell us that this stew is going to be amazing. Okay, let's look at this if we don't complete all the tasks. So first things first, we'll talk to Mary and we're going to deny her. Now under that branch, we didn't turn anything on, did we? So if we come over here to the forest, there's no sparkles. We cannot interact with these mushrooms. Let's come back over here to Lily. Oh no. So we broke it. Okay, so this is a common problem. Let's come back over here and look at what happened. Look at that. So remember what I said, anything after end is going to play regardless of what you choose here? Well, we place self switch A in the wrong spot. So let's move it. We're just going to select it and hit Control X. And we're going to place it underneath, what are these mushrooms for? Let's make sure that one's correct. Perfect. Okay, let's go back and test. Alright, we know the mushrooms aren't actable. We'll talk to Mary, Lily. We will agree to get her mushrooms. Okay, she wants us to go get her mushrooms. Did you find the mushrooms? I want the mushrooms. Okay, let's make sure that other branch is working correctly. We say no. She's very kind, but we're still on this page. So it's going to ask us this until we say yes, essentially. We'll say yes. We didn't go get her mushrooms. Did you find the mushrooms? Okay, let's go get her mushrooms. We'll say okay. We got her mushrooms. Perfect. And that quest line's done. So if you talk to her again, thank you, this stew will be amazing. Fantastic. That's how switches work. So let's run this back just a little bit and make it a little bit more visual. I'm gonna hop over here to Photoshop to show you guys how this works. So hopefully this will help you guys. Over here, we have our NPC, and we have our yes, and we have our no. If we say yes, yes is going to turn on this switch. Now that event is living there anyway, all right? So we said yes, this switch goes from being off to on. If we said no, the switch would remain off. Once the player, we'll call this player, comes and interacts with this event then turns on this switch. So switch 2 is now on. Our new NPC on her new page is going to check, is switch 2, here's switch 2, is it turned on or is it turned off? If it's turned off, it's going to run something different. If it's turned on, then that runs us here. Once that's done, we then create another branch and she goes off into the great beyond. Okay? So hopefully this will help you visualize things. It's just a flow chart. All right. That is the most basic of quests that you can actually make. It's just a fetch quest, but there's a lot more we can do, and we'll be looking into that in other videos. Before we take off, there's one other thing I mentioned here that you will probably use, especially when you're building something complex, and that is the comments. All these are notes to the dev. They do not run. They'll show up as green, so if you see anything that this obnoxious color of green, that's just a comment, okay? They do not, Jesus Christ. There we go, okay. They do not run. The player will never see them. They're just here for you, all right? Hit apply, hit OK, save our game. All right. That is the most basic of eventing. Next week, what we're going to be looking at is how to set up shops. We'll set up an inn, and really the inn isn't going to be much different from what we've done before. And we're also going to look at movement routes so we can create our own cutscenes. All right? So, until next time, keep playing and keep creating. Bye for now.